we're really going to get to that day of 100% clean energy, we got to be able to store that power.
And the governor would veto the bill because of saying there's not enough tax revenue available to give subsidies to build all these farms?
So the governor would veto the bill, I think, for the same reason he vetoed the 2016 version. He called it a tax on ratepayers. The 2016 renewable bill, he called it a sunshine tax, whatever that means. Wait, you're taxing the sun? Wait. But he basically says he's not in favor of government mandates. He doesn't want new taxes. He had some more extremist wing of his party was telling him veto it. Honestly, I think he regrets it. On the first day of the General Assembly session of 2019, in front of reporters at an event, someone asked him about his veto of the 2016 Clean Electricity Standard bill, and he said, veto it. Did I veto that? And he kind of laughed, and he goes, I'm very proud of that policy. I'm proud of it. That's what he said. He said he was proud of a policy that he vetoed. So Larry Hogan will figure out a way to take credit for anything, and what I'm hoping is he'll just short-circuit that process. Don't veto the bill, forcing the General Assembly to override him in January. Just go ahead and sign it and take credit for it now.
Right, yeah.
What about the migratory birds and the wind farm issue? And secondly, I have two questions. Second one is, if you do away with Dickerson, what do you do with the trash?
Those are both great questions. So what about birds and bats related to wind power? It's a great question. I'm a lifelong birder myself. Have traveled to the Amazon to write stories about bird watching. I was on the Potomac River fishing both Friday and Saturday. And if you go down there, especially this time of year, it's not just the fish that are there. The bird life is stunning. The entire flocks of cormorants who land and swim underwater and come up and have a perch or a shad in their mouth, and then you watch it go down their gullets. The osprey, those incredible flying machines. There's the fish are in the water, and the next thing you know, an osprey goes down, and that fish is speared through with the talons. The osprey's then rushing hundreds of feet up in the air to a tree overlooking the Potomac, and you see all these birds, and suddenly you're aware of all these birds up in the branches eating fish. We're not the only fishing people who came to fish that day. It's just amazing bird life. And so I'm an avid birder. I would never advocate for an energy system that I thought was bad for birds. The good news is that properly sited land-based and offshore wind farms, if they're properly sited, have minimal impacts on birds. I think the average for land-based wind farms is 2.2 bird fatalities per turbine per year. So you're talking about one of these large turbines in Kansas or West Virginia, 2.2 birds per turbine per year.
And
now,
how many do the cats get?
The cats get billions.
Birds.
Billions.
Crashing
Yeah,
into
and
buildings.
building. But the point is that we don't want any fatalities to birds, and there's no such thing as a perfect energy source. Wind power doesn't have to be perfect, though. It just has to be better than the alternative, which is coal and gas. The number one threat to bird life worldwide, by far, is climate change. So I'm as concerned about that as anyone, and part of the reason I'm a climate activist and a clean energy advocate is because I'm a birder. In terms of Dickerson, I've been asking Mark Elrich what the plan is for a while. When I was in Annapolis lobbying for the Clean Energy Jobs Act, when we still had the feature to shut the trash incineration loophole, a lot of legislators from all over the state asked me, what's the plan? Smarty pants Montgomery County environmentalist? What is the plan? Your county executive says he wants to shut down Dickerson. Where's the trash going to go? Give us a plan. And I call up Mark, what's the plan? We're going to get you a plan. I think they're still working on it. I never got a plan. But I know that there are a lot of folks, especially in the northern part of our county, who are concerned about those emissions, and the plant itself is not very well managed. We have these uncontrollable fires in the plant for a while. I do know that the residual ash from that plant is actually trucked all the way to a predominantly African American county in Virginia. So there's no such thing as a perfect system. I think we can do better than lighting trash on fire. We need to do better at not creating trash in the first place. And I don't know what the plan is gonna be, but I know that we're an incredible county with some incredibly smart and resourceful people, and we can figure this out, because the status quo isn't working. And I will also say that if you're not already, I'm just gonna take a pause here to say, if you're not already someone who gets emails from my group, the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, let me just say this. I give a lot of talks like this all over our region, and a lot of people when I'm done are like, Mike, okay, you've succeeded, you've completely freaked me out. I'm totally freaked out about climate change. But I also have 3 kids, and I'm in the church choir, and don't give me 10 things to do. Just tell me, what is that one thing? If I had to take one action, what would that action be? Tell me what it is. And I give the same answer all the time. It's very straightforward. The one thing you can do is develop a relationship with one group in your state or in your region or in your county. Develop a relationship with one group that's really fighting climate change and really fighting for clean energy. And what is the best way to develop a relationship with a group that's doing that? The best thing that you can do is to join their email alert list. Just sign up for their email alerts. And then I hear the groans, and I can hear the silent groans and eye rolling. Are you kidding me? We don't get enough emails as it is? And my answer to that is, how many of you here tonight heard about this gathering tonight because you read about it in the Washington Post? Raise your hand. How many of you heard it on WAMU? Raise your hand. How many of you maybe social media? Wow, not even one on social media. How many of you got an email telling you about this event tonight? It is still the #1 effective way to organize for social justice in our country. As many emails as we get, it's still how we stay in touch with movement. Therefore, I am director of a nonprofit that promotes clean energy solutions in our state. If you'd like to develop a relationship with my group beyond all the great work you already do for the League of Women Voters, I'd like to circulate this just right clearly. I promise you that the second you don't want to get our emails anymore, you just tell us and we'll stop. But I think that you'll find that you appreciate getting alerts about what our county council is doing, what our state government's doing, what Chris Van Hollen is doing on the Hill, what Jamie Raskin is doing. We will keep you updated. But the #1 thing you can do is let me know how I can stay in touch with you. So I'll go that way with this one, that way with that one.
And by the way, at LWV.org, the National League website, there is a toolkit on climate change that you can search for.
So I've got a daughter out in California, and one of the things that I noticed they were doing out there is covering parking lots and putting solar panels on the covers, especially in high school parking lots. And so the question is really two-pronged. Are we considering something like that? Because parking lots seem to be everywhere. And how much collaboration is there amongst other states for sort of best practices like that? Maybe is, I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts on that.
I do have some thoughts, and in this piece that I am almost done writing for the Washington Post, and I try to create this vision of what 2030 is going to look like in our state because of passage of the Clean Energy Jobs Act. One of the things I write about is the fact that most of us, when we drive to work, if we're still driving cars in 2030, we'll park our cars under a solar canopy, under a solar parking lot cover, or if we go to the sports stadium, wherever it is, those sort of solar parking lots are going to be very common in our state. In part because solar costs continue to drop, and two, as you said, there are a lot of parking lots in our state, and there's no trees to obstruct the sun, and the cost of building those canopies is getting smaller and smaller, and so those are going to be a big part of our future, and we really don't need to do anything other than make sure the governor signs the damn bill, because the mandates, this bill requires that 14.5% of our renewable portfolio come from solar. So it is going to be, we're going to be I think, the strongest solar state in the country in terms of mandated per capita solar development. So it is a great time to invest in a solar company in Maryland if you know one, because solar is coming and it's going to be on rooftops. It's going to be it's going to be parking lot canopies. It's going to be utility scale. And Bill McKibben's new book, which I said is equal parts depressing and equal parts inspiring. The most inspiring part of Bill's new book is how he goes on and on about solar. How we used to hear how nuclear power is going to be too cheap to meter eventually, and all the promises of nuclear. That never happened, and it did not bring us security. It did not bring us an energy paradise. Solar has that potential. It's distributed, it's democratized. It'll be impossible for one terrorist group to knock out the whole distributed solar grid. It's cheap, it can go anywhere, it's silent, there are no moving parts, it's sustainable, it's good for farmers and row house dwellers. It's coming, and it will be covering a lot of our parking lots.
That's marvelous. You're a very effective speaker. So many times I've heard you speak, and you do give us hope. That's it. Am I doing
I
this?
can hear you.
Yeah, even closer.
Oh, closer. With your focus in the state of Maryland, particularly on clean energy and clean air and clean water and everything, are you helping Sierra Club with their attempt with Beyond Coal to close the 6 remaining coal plants in the state?
You know, I am proud to say that my soon to graduate University of Maryland son, who's getting a degree in environmental policy, I was both gratified and kind of depressed as a father when 2 years ago, when he was a sophomore, he said, "Dad, I gotta make up my mind what I'm gonna major in pretty soon. I can't keep putting it off." And he loves history, he loves literature, and I just assumed he was gonna major in one of those. But he said, "Dad, my problem is I grew up with you." And he reminds me that when he was little and he would use Legos to build little Lego houses, and this is like when he was 4 and 5 years old in 2001, 2002, he would build Lego houses and then he would put little Lego solar panels. He didn't know you could have a house without solar panels. He grew up that way, and he said, "Dad, the only thing that has real meaning for me is climate change. I could do a lot of other things, but I would always have this knowledge that climate is the only really meaningful thing I could do in my life." So I am proud to say that he is interning this year, right now, at the College Park office of the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club, working on the Beyond Coal campaign. With Matt Dernoga and some other great people at Sierra Club. We are very supportive. We anticipated there was going to be a bill this year to start phasing out these coal plants. Paul Pinsky of Prince George's County was thinking about introducing it. I think he's going to introduce it next year, 2020, and we're going to be very supportive of that bill. So we will continue to work with our close friends at Sierra Club to get these plants shut down.
So sorry the pipe bill didn't go through, by the way.
Yes, one of our big disappointments this year is we had a bill that would have made it a lot harder to build pipelines for frack gas, to bring the frack gas from Pennsylvania into our state, through our state. And that bill did not survive. We're gonna bring it back next year, and we're not, we gotta do 2 things. We gotta keep all known reserves of fossil fuels in the ground in our region and worldwide. The first rule of holes is when you find yourself in one, stop digging, so we gotta stop bringing these fossil fuels up from the ground. So we gotta stop these pipelines. And number 2, we need to move forward rapidly as we can with the alternatives to fossil fuels, which I've spent the last hour talking about.
I have 2 questions. One of the ways that there have been attempts to incentivize homeowners to do solar is that they can sell back the energy to the utility companies. But I've read out west that there are some places and some bills happening where the utilities, because they're losing money, are saying that we are not going to pay you anymore for giving us your energy, And therefore, there are people who spend a lot of money putting solar on their homes thinking that it would be paid off through this method, and all of a sudden that's disappeared. So the one question is there anything happening in Maryland with regard to protecting homeowners who are putting solar on their homes so that in the future the utilities can't say we're not going to give you any of these rebates anymore and you're just stuck with the cost of the solar? So that's the one question. Unrelated, we have a governor who is pushing a gigantic enlargement of our beltway in 270. And we know what that all means. How do we kill that?
I can give you the emails for the Board of Public Works members. They vote on May 8th.
No, they don't. I mean, I just saw something today that indicates they're pushing forward with an $8 to $9 billion project before the vote.
Well, they're planning it, but,
Before the vote.
yeah, but they're pushing forward with it, but it still needs the approval of the Board of Public Works. There's a rally on May 5th
That's
that
right.
Tom Hucker is
That's this-
doing in Silver Spring, right?
Yes,
In the evening,
yes.
oh no, in the
No, it's during
morning.
the day. 11 a.m. at the Civic Center.
Right, you can look at Citizens Against the Beltway.org.com. I can't remember. Citizens Against the Beltway, you can look them up on Facebook or Google them, and they have all the information. They also have, there's emails to, addresses to send to the Board of Public Works is Nancy Kopp. Governor Hogan will vote yes because it's his project, and Peter Francho. So the goal is to lobby Kopp and Francho. They have emails you can send them to urge them to vote no. I can give you can look on, as of tomorrow, you can look on the Do the Most Good Montgomery County website. There'll be information there too. Our newsletter comes out tomorrow.
So you said May 5th, right? Saturday?
Sunday,
Sunday.
May 5th.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, either
Silver
Sunday-
Spring Civic
Sunday,
Center. At
May
what time?
11
11 to 1.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, I'll
It's
make sure
Tom
we
Hucker.
promote that.
And then it's on the agenda for the Board of Public Works, our meeting in Annapolis on May 8th.
At 10 a.m.
And you can sign up to testify for that.
No, actually, they're gonna limit testimony, but letters are most effective.
Yeah, you can send a letter to Kopp or Francho, I can send you an email.
Great.
Of, someone who's just like the manager of that.
Great.
Of the-
I didn't know about the rally at the Civic Center. That's great. We'll promote that. So highways, you got your answer on highways. And in terms of sort of net metering solar, that I think in Nevada was the state that sort of switched gears and left a lot of homeowners holding the bag who'd made investments in solar on their homes, and then the state stopped buying, allowing the utilities to pay for it. But then that got reversed back. So that was a situation that got corrected, but is a sobering cautionary tale for the rest of us. Right now, I think that Pepco in DC and in Maryland and BG&E, they are resigned to the fact that the clean energy revolution is coming. They did not oppose our bills in DC or Maryland, but we haven't reached a point where individual houses can be little power plants on a large scale, which is what's coming. We need to generate as much as we can in every house and distribute it throughout the grid. So we're gonna have to watch Pepco closely to make sure they don't try to change the rules. Look, there's no future in the business model of the big utilities, which is centralized generation at a nuclear plant or a coal plant, and then send that centralized generation throughout the region. We're gonna decentralize the generation. We're all gonna become little small individual power plants, and it means the beginning of the end of the business model of companies like Pepco, and they know it. And we gotta make sure that they don't do anything to stop it. I think they're starting to transition into their own investments in wind and solar, and that's where they gotta become clean energy businesses, not just electric companies.
So there was a hull flap a couple of months ago when it became clear that Georgetown University wanted to put a solar farm in, what is it? Whatever county by
Charles
mowing,
County.
Charles County by mowing down 250 acres of virgin forest.
Not virgin.
Well, forest. But, yeah, forest, which is stupid. And I think, I imagine they're trying to back out of that now. But how do we, in the rush to put up solar, how do we keep those kind of stupid things from happening?
So many of you may know about this. Georgetown University, in order to go sort of carbon net zero and to maximize their greenness at Georgetown, have invested in a solar project in Charles County that involves, in part, cutting down 200 acres of trees. I will, for the rest of my life, curse Georgetown University because I don't think I testified on a single bill in Annapolis. I mean, I testified on a lot of bills related to energy and climate, and I think for all of them but one, some Republican asked me, do you support cutting down trees for solar power? And that was because, Georgetown made this really bad move, and I think if they could, they would undo it. I don't think they're pulling back though on that. But like a lot of things in life, the story is a little bit more complex than the idea of cutting down, pristine forest. The land has been timbered in Charles County recently, and the owner has declared that the trees will get timbered if solar doesn't get built. And that is their right under current law. It's private property. We'd rather them, we'd rather put all solar in places where not a single tree is cut down. I mean, a lot of people ask me, hey, I have a shady roof. Should I cut down a tree to put solar panels on my roof? I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense. Those trees are sequestering carbon. Those trees are shading your house. Whatever solar you generate on your roof, you're gonna generate that much more electricity demand in air conditioning in the summer. It almost never makes sense to cut down trees, including in this situation. Will there never be trees cut down in the future of Maryland on solar power? No, there will be some trees cut down. And again, a lot of it may be people who are planning to timber their land anyway, have been timbering their lands, but we need to avoid even that because we don't have one tree that we can spare in this state. There's plenty of rooftop solar, there are plenty of parking lots, there are plenty of places to put solar before cutting down a single tree.
I'm going to take a prerogative here. You've talked about the swollen river because of the rain. What areas are likely to be most in danger in the next few years, not just 10 years, but in the next few years from rising waters along our coastlines? We've got a lot of coastline.
Yeah, we 3,000 miles of tidal shoreline in Maryland that will all be affected by sea level rise. I would be most worried if I were in places like downtown Annapolis or Crisfield on the eastern shore, Smith Island, Fells Point. The closer you are to water, the more in trouble you are. But look, we're all in trouble, as we all know. This is, I'm reading Bill McKibben's book, and he makes a point that why do we call this planet Earth? We're 70% ocean. This planet should be called ocean. And climate change is just a massive rearrangement of the world's hydrology. We are a water planet, and on the places where it's not literally ocean, we have rivers and we have creeks, we have rainfall, and we have frozen ice at the poles. And climate change is just a massive rearrangement of that hydrology, which means big changes coming to any, if you could call something infrastructure, think about it. What is it? A road, a bridge, a harbor, a tunnel. If you call it infrastructure, it is in trouble with climate change because that harbor is going to be flooded, that tunnel is going to be wrecked, that bridge. I mean, I think about where I live in Tacoma Park, just the bridges across Sligo Creek. When the water gets high, I'm thinking, you know what? You push that water even a little bit more and those bridges are gone. And what the heck are we going to do without bridges even over our smallest creeks? I mean, think about where you live and the creeks and rivers that you cross. If it's infrastructure, if it's a bridge, it's in trouble from climate change, and we're running out of time to do something about it.
So I teach high school English, and my students were learning about the Juliana versus United States government case that's in the District in Oregon.
Yeah.
Where young people are basically suing the American government, saying that the inaction has challenged young people's rights to life, liberty, and property. Do you, in your expertise, do you think that's a valid claim? Do you think that case will go anywhere? Do you think the young people have a case? I'm just curious with your expertise, what you think their chances are making it to the Supreme Court.
That's a great question. So this is the kids in Oregon who are suing the government, saying you violated our basic civil right to a livable planet by not taking action on climate change. Based on what I've read, they're not likely to win. They have affected a lot of people, and they're winning in the court of public opinion. My son is, again, getting a degree in environmental policy at Maryland, has studied this case as part of his coursework. So the struggle for justice that they've amplified through this case has been a net positive. I will say that what congressional district are we in? Is this Delaney or Raskin?
Raskin.
This is
Well,
Raskin.
some of us are in Congressional District 8, which is Raskin. But others of us are still in Congressional District 6,
Oh, yeah,
which
in
is now
Trump.
Trump.
Well,
Which is
if Jamie Raskin,
gerrymandered.
if-
No, I got it.
if Jamie Raskin is your congressman, as he is mine, I will tell you that your congressman was at my house Saturday afternoon, and we sat down with his staff director, who's a Harvard law-trained prosecutor, recently of the Justice Department, who Jamie has hired as part of his subcommittee. Jamie Raskin is on the Oversight and Reform subcommittee in the House, and his subcommittee is the Subcommittee on Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. His vice chair of that committee is AOC, and they are paying a lot of attention to this Oregon case, the kids case. They are pessimistic that they're going to win in the Supreme Court, but it has inspired AOC and Jamie to begin an investigation based on a lot of people that I brought into their office. And by the way, AOC is exactly as advertised. I met her a couple of months ago in Jamie's office, just exactly as advertised. Smart, listens, takes notes, has incredible leadership qualities, and a great vision. And the two of them have every intention of laying out the denial, the intentional denial of the oil companies. The oil companies knew in the 1970s what climate change was going to do, and they buried that science and instead started a campaign of denial. And they're still doing it.
They're following the example of the tobacco.
Yes.
Right. So
Tobacco
just like the
auto.
tobacco industry, we know the famous photo of the 6 tobacco barons, all white males with their arms up saying tobacco doesn't kill people. And that started with a Henry Waxman investigation and hearing where he got them under oath. It is the intention of Jamie Raskin and AOC to get Rex Tillerson, all the current and past oil CEOs in front of that committee to talk about the biggest lie ever told in human civilization. And to force the polluters to pay. And if the oil companies have to begin paying for the impacts on our planet,
They'll fix it.
they will wish they were the tobacco industry by the time they're done. And so I am very happy to say those investigations and those hearings are coming. We had a strategy session at my house on Saturday, and it's happening. Yeah. And I will say that I see some people are having to leave. One last thing I want to say is my organization is a scrappy small group. Again, we have 16 employees across the region. Most people think we're bigger than we are because we're really noisy and we work hard and we devote a lot to communications. And most people are shocked when I tell them we're 15, 16 people across the region. But those 15 or 16 people have to get paid. And that means I have to raise money to pay them. We raise money from foundations, but we also raise money from individuals, Many of you have participated in our annual polar bear plunge, or you've donated to someone who's jumped into the Potomac River. In January, we do it every year. But I also tell you that one of my board members is a guy named Ted Rouse of the famous Rouse family, Jim Rouse, who designed Columbia, very well-known family in Baltimore. Ted Rouse donated a Tesla Model 3 sedan to my organization for us to raffle and to give it away. And we are selling 1,800 raffle tickets, which people in Las Vegas say these are really good odds, y'all. By Montgomery County law, we have to have a set number of tickets at a set price, and the raffle has to last a set number of time. It's a 60-day raffle. We're about halfway through it. We have a potential of 1,800 tickets to sell. We've only sold about 600. Your chances of winning this Tesla are very damn good. The cost is just $100 for a ticket, and even if you don't win the Tesla, the climate wins, because all the money goes to CCAN. So I have little quarter pagers here. You can buy your ticket online. I would just ask you, if you like what we do, if you like the spirit of the actions that we take, if you want to do more on climate change, all I ask you is take a shot at winning a Tesla. And I have that information right here. So, do we have another?
One more question.
One more question.
Yeah, my question is about recyclables. I read that China is no longer buying our recyclables, so how does that impact Maryland and Montgomery County, which has a wonderful recycling program? Where will all those recyclables go, or where are they going now, if that's not an option, just sell them?
Yeah, so I heard that China, and part of it is payback for some of the tariffs, that they are not taking all or part of our...
The dirty part, they don't want that.
Yeah, but even paper, I think that...
Yeah, they don't want paper either.
Yeah.
And I just heard on WAMU that most of the glass in this region is going straight to the landfill, even when you put it in a recycling bin. In Arlington, they've stopped taking glass. So they have individual recycling centers where you can take your glass and it gets crushed and used in construction projects. So I'm not an expert on recycling. I'm a big supporter of recycling, but I don't have a good answer for you.
I can answer. I just
Yes,
went to a workshop about recycling Montgomery County put on. They assured us that every piece of plastic you put in that recycling bin is at this point being recycled into something else. However, I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think it can keep going. The only thing they do pay for that they can't get rid of at this point, and it's like the stock market. Every day they look who's buying what, and it vacillates all the time. They pay $15 a ton for shreds of glass because glass has to be divided by color. And so that's the only thing that they have to pay somebody to take away. But other than that, everything is recyclable. But I've come to the conclusion that recycling is a thing that makes us feel like we're doing something. Right. And it's really, it's really not, I mean, we do it, I do it, but anyway.
Well, I know all the people fighting against plastic straws have made a lot of us, myself included, hyper aware of single-use plastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it is on my mind all the time now. What, you handed me a plastic cup? What will I do with it?
Well,
it's a single-use plastic?
Yeah, the first thing is refuse. And refuse what's given to you, and the next thing is reduce. And recycle is, if everything else fails, recycle it. But there's a lot of others, refuse, reduce, before you get to recycling.
Refuse is the first R.
I can add one more piece of information about what's happening with China. Everything was going to China because China was paying more. And a number of local facilities that would have handled these things, were shut down. Some of them are opening up again, and they're not going to pay as much, but they're going to handle some of the recycling. I got this from the head of recycling for Rockville.
Oh, that's great. Well, I want to take this opportunity again to thank all of you for coming and all your great questions, and especially to thank Mike. So thank you very much.